Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? It's Tuesday, May 28th, 2024. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. In a bold move, President Joe Biden's campaign showed up outside Donald Trump's New York City criminal trial on violating campaign finance rules, while the world awaits a verdict. Closing arguments also began today. Actor Robert De Niro and two former Capitol Hill police officers were there to talk about Trump's role on January 6th. MAGA is not happy. Vice President Kamala Harris acknowledges the importance of the black male vote. That, of course, is a critically important issue in this election. A recent poll asked, in what decade was America's greatest? We'll show you the results of the poll for the Michael Smirkonish podcast. Yeah, you wouldn't be surprised what white folks have to say. Plus, we have the 911 calls to the Okaloosa County, Florida Sheriff's Office the day U.S. Senior Airman Roger Fordson was gunned down in his home on May 3rd. Plus, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley lays out the dangers of the far-right's Project 2025. Plus, in tonight's Marketplace segment, Cheer 5. That's right, a cheerleading movement, HBCU style, stomp and shake reigns. We'll talk about this company. It's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
All right, folks, closing arguments began today in the trial of Donald Trump. You know, he was on trial for, they keep calling a hush money trial, but it's not. He was violating campaign finance rules. Well, every single day he's out there talking to the cameras, complaining, whining about this and that. So today the Biden campaign was like, what the hell? Since all the media's out there with all the cameras, we're going to show up ourselves, led by actor Robert De Niro. And, ooh, Lord, did he take it to him.
This is my neighborhood, downtown New York City. I grew up here and feel at home in these streets. I feel comfortable. The Twin Towers fell just over here, just over there. This part of the city was like a ghost town. But we vowed we would not allow terrorists to change our way of life. And we started the Tribeca Festival to bring people back. I love this city. I love this city. I don't want to destroy it. Donald Trump wants to destroy not only the city, but the country, and eventually he could destroy the world. But we vowed we would not allow terrorists. I owe this city a lot. And that's why it's so weird that Donald Trump is just across the street. Because he doesn't belong in my city. I don't know where he belongs, but he certainly doesn't belong here. We New Yorkers used to tolerate him when he was just another grubby real estate hustler masquerading as a big shot, a two-bit playboy lying his way into the tabloids, pretending to be a spokesperson for himself. He was calling it as himself for himself, to fool the press into inflating his net worth. A clown. But this city is pretty accommodating. We make room for clowns. We have them all over the city. People who do crazy things in the street, we tolerate it. It's part of the city, it's part of the culture. But not a person like Trump who will eventually run the country. That does not work, and we all know that. Anyway, we make room for clowns, to each his own. But no one takes him or took him really seriously. They take him seriously now, of course. But around the country, people who didn't know him as we did started to support him. They bought into his bullshit. Trump bought their votes with outrageous lies and empty promises. He got the most.
Harry Dunn, a former U.S. Capitol Police officer who, of course, failed in his bid to run for Congress in Maryland, plus Michael Fannin, a former D.C. police officer, they also spoke at the news conference, refocusing the attention on what took place on January 6th, of course, led by Donald Trump.
I came here today to remind Americans of what Donald Trump is capable of and the violence that he unleashed on all Americans on January 6, 2021. For 2 decades, I was a D.C. police officer serving the citizens of the District of Columbia, primarily working in narcotics. On January 6, 2021, I heard distress calls coming from fellow police officers on the Capitol, as thousands of Trump supporters rushed them and brutally assaulted members of law enforcement. That day, I, like many other, hundreds of other D.C. police officers, put on a uniform and responded to the Capitol to assist our brothers and sisters in law enforcement, defending the Capitol from a violent, armed mob of Trump's supporters. These supporters were fueled by Trump's lies and the lies of his surrogates, lies that the 2020 election was stolen. Those same lies have been spewed by Donald Trump and his surrogates about what happened to me and so many other police officers on January 6, 2021. That day, I was brutally assaulted. I was pulled from the police line by a man named Albuquerque Head, a Trump supporter who later pled guilty to his violent assault on me. While being restrained by the violent mob, I was beaten. An individual named Kyle Young tried to strip me of my firearm, while chants of kill him with his own gun were echoed by other members of the crowd. At that time, Thomas Civic, a man from Buffalo, New York, stripped me of my badge and my police radio, my lifeline to call for help from other officers. All the while, I continued to be beaten and then struck with a taser on my neck by Daniel Rodriguez, another Trump supporter who also pled guilty to his violent assault on me. All 4 of these individuals are self-admitted Trump supporters. All 4 of them committed violent assault on law enforcement. I'm just one representative of the hundreds of police officers that were assaulted that day by Donald Trump supporters, inspired by his lies. The lies that continue to this day to inspire my fellow Americans to turn against their fellow Americans, to turn against police officers. At the end of the day, this election is about Donald Trump and his vision for the office of the President of the United States, not as a public servant who answers to the elected, to the people who elected him, but as an authoritarian who answers to and serves only himself.
If January 6th didn't happen, we wouldn't be here right now. I'd still be at work, working at the United States Capitol. I appreciate the words by Mr. De Niro, Officer Fanone, but anytime I get an opportunity to acknowledge, address, and thank the men and women of the Capitol Police and the Metropolitan Police Department who served that day to protect our democracy, to protect each other, to make sure everybody got to go home that night. That's what we fought for that day. The fight for a lot of us didn't end on January 6th, that evening when we went home. The fight still continues now. What happened that day was an attempt to overthrow an election. Donald Trump is the greatest threat to our democracy and the safety of communities across the country today. He has encouraged and continued to encourage political violence. We've been called traitors just today. We were all called traitors on January 6th for doing our job. And yes, we protected Republicans. We protected Democrats alike. It's not about the story that we don't agree with. Political violence is never acceptable. But you have a presidential candidate, that champions it, that encourages it, that supports it. We cannot have that. Officer Sicknick, he died the day after January 6th. They said it was because of a stroke, but the events of January 6th caused it. His father said it best. Charles Sicknick, Trump is the reason why my son is dead. Trump does whatever will get him votes and helps Donald Trump. He is about himself. He calls the criminals who attacked our Capitol patriots. He calls the men and women who died serving and protecting this country suckers and losers. He constantly echoes the words of dictators and invokes the language of Nazi Germany, embracing political violence, pledging to rule as a dictator on day one. Those aren't our talking points. Those aren't left news talking points. He said it. Americans need to wake up. This is not a drill. Mr. Nero said he's not trying to scare you. When I just unsuccessfully ran for office. A lot of people that I met out there said they were afraid. They're scared to see what another Trump presidency looks like. I try to pride myself in having some type of way to make people feel comfortable, saying some kind of a word, a hug, a look, or something. It's going to be okay. I couldn't say that to those individuals. I couldn't say it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. We can't count on these institutions to stop Donald Trump. It's going to take us Americans at the ballot box to defeat him once and for all.
My panel, Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice at the EPA. Joining us from D.C., Randy Bryant, DEI disruptor, also out of D.C. Joe Richardson, civil rights attorney out of Los Angeles. Joe, let's start with you. The trial is going on. Closing arguments begin today. Of course, jury will get this case very soon. You've got folks like Karl Rove on Fox News saying, oh, this was awful, this was bad. The Biden campaign, they politicized this. I'm sorry. Hasn't Trump been doing that every single day, attacking the judge, attacking prosecutors, calling Bragg a Soros DA, even though George Soros didn't give any money nor support Alvin Bragg? I mean, so this nonsense that they shouldn't have said anything. What do you say?
I say what's good for the goose is good for the gander. They've been doing that every day. Trump has been doing that every day. And by the way, BTW, IJS, Robert De Niro, and the officers are not in Congress. They're not shirking their responsibilities in Congress to go into press conferences at the front door, as it were. And so, you know, this is a way to speak to the people. Most people see this through a political lens, and frankly, the Biden campaign is probably just a little bit more honest about the fact that if this is what they're doing, this is what we're going to do. So they can say that they don't like that they did it. You know, the Republicans can say that they don't like that the Democrats did this. But they certainly can't say that they don't understand what they're doing, because they've been doing the same thing the whole time. And so, you know, this is turnabout being fair play. We'll see what happens with the trial. You know, there's an argument that, you know, it would be great if we could see it as it occurred, because you're always seeing it through someone else's eyes now. You know, even a director of a movie is the go-between between you and a good book if the movie is made out of a book. So it would be great for us to see it directly. But We will see what happens as it pertains to what happens in the courtroom legally, and that's a whole nother show. But the fact that they would stand outside and acknowledge the political implications of what is going on right now is perhaps the most honest thing that they could have done, particularly understanding where we are right now and how everyone else seems to see it.
This is called Randy taking the fight to them. And listen, if this is all the media is going to cover, they're going to have all the cameras there. What the hell? Go there and remind them what that thug did on January 6th.
Absolutely. The Republicans have done a good job of always creating a circus because they are following a clown. So why not bring us to the circus? We might as well participate because we try to handle things in professional, dignified ways, and the media does not like that. So I think it was brilliant that we started playing the game that they're playing. We started playing by their rules, and so I think it was absolutely brilliant because that is what the media has followed and has liked. And we have short memories. We Americans have short memories, and the fact that we're considering this person to be our president after January 6th is just blows my mind. So people need to remember this terrorist attack and be reminded of who led it.
Mustafa, I was cracking up laughing because there was some Fox News nutcase. She was like, oh, this is just wrong. They shouldn't be doing this. And I'm like, put your violin away. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, they don't like when you check them. It's interesting. You got the Speaker of the House. You got all these other folks who continue to come up there and pontificate and try and actually take the country's attention away from what's happening there in the trial. It's also important, as Randy just said, to actually remind people of what you're going to get if you vote for Donald Trump. Now, everybody knows I never tell anybody who to vote for, but I do say pay attention to the individuals who are asking for your vote. Are they a person of honor? Are they a person who actually cares about someone more than themselves? So by refocusing what has happened in the past and what Donald Trump has brought forward, you can very easily answer the question, is he good for the country? Is he good for your family? Or is he someone who will take us back? So I appreciate both Michael and Harry and all those other officers who on January 6th stood the line and tried to do the right thing. It was good to see them there also. I had a chance to meet many of them over the years and working up on the Hill. And, lots of times those guys and ladies don't get much love from folks, and they often are not seen, and of course they don't want to be. But, we're in this moment now where we have to place a spotlight on those who are willing to stand up for our country and those who are actually trying to deconstruct the basic foundations that we have, because we don't have a perfect country. But when we have individuals who continue to sort of deconstruct at least the basic elements, then we know we're going to end up with. So I'm glad people are putting a spotlight.
You take the fight to them. That's the position that I've always had. And so what the hell, you got nothing to lose. And when the right starts whining and complaining, tell them, shut up. Just shut up. All right, folks, gotta go to a break. We'll be right back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Coming soon to the Black Star Network.
It was my junior year at Georgetown, and Spike calls me and he says, Malcolm, what are you doing next year? So, graduating, He said, take a year off, work on Malcolm X. I said, okay.
But first of all, for the folks who don't know, Spike is
my cousin. Spike is my cousin.
Just for the person watching, like, how the hell is Spike just gonna tell you that
it's true? It's true.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Devon Franklin. It is always a pleasure to be in the house. You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay right here.
All right, folks, Vice President Kamala Harris continues to be out there on the campaign trail, speaking to a variety of issues. She's had her reproductive rights tour, her, of course, Black economic tour that continues. She recently sat down with Maverick Carter, of course, who works alongside LeBron James, for a conversation on a variety of issues. And a question came up specifically as it relates to Black male voters. Here's what she had to say.
How important is, or are, I should say, Black men in the election and getting them out to vote?
So important. But I'll tell you, one of the things, Mav, that when I do press interviews on the road, they'll say, well, what's going on with Black men and this election? And I, to a one, will turn it back on that journalist and say, I challenge your premise, because you're making it sound like Democrats should just have Black men in our back pocket. No, Black men are like everybody. You gotta earn the vote. You gotta earn it. So that's how I feel. And that's why, we're doing a number of things, and we'll continue to do a number of things that are focused on the particular needs of every group, including Black men. And understanding that it's about speaking about what are we doing to meet the opportunity to feed their ambition, right? That's why a lot of my work around access to capital has focused on young men of color, Black men and Black men, knowing that, again, so many entrepreneurs, and it's when people think Black men and small businesses, it's not just a barbershop.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I convened a group of 50 younger Black men, entrepreneurs, in my office in D.C. And we got these brothers out there that have tech companies, clean energy companies. This one brother who's doing a lot of work on space. I actually head up the Space Council for the United States. I love that work. So it is all of that. And I think part of it is just understanding that, like any group, this is not a monolith.
Exactly.
And so let's not just have the rote kind of talking points as though Black men only care about criminal justice.
Sure, exactly.
Right? Or it's about, okay, I have ambition, where is access to capital? I'm concerned about healthcare. I have women in my life, I'm concerned about their rights, and on and on.
Well, it's interesting here, Mustafa, when I hear that answer. She's absolutely right. One of the things that it drives me crazy is when you hear, we're doing a barbershop tour, I mean, it's as if Black men don't talk anywhere else. It pisses me off. And again, when it comes to owning businesses, we all ain't cutting hair.
Right. It is about economic justice. And I really appreciate the vice president, sort of laying that out so that people would understand that we are not monolithic in any way, form, or fashion. And that, Black men want to be able to provide for their families. So we have to be talking about economics. We are talking not just about jobs. We often have an important conversation about jobs, but we want to build wealth. So through wealth, we know that if we own our own businesses, and those businesses can show up in lots of different ways, then we can begin to address that wealth gap. We're not asking anybody for anything special. We want to make sure that we have a level playing field. We want to make sure that we have access to capital. We want to be able to grow our businesses and be able to build the capacity that's necessary for us to, go from year to year and continue to build it in a very thoughtful way so that it has a strong set of pillars underneath of it. And those are some of the things that the vice president is talking about. So we need to have more of those conversations, because representation matters. And there are brothers who are out there that are doing phenomenal things, but often don't get the same spotlight as someone who might be mediocre, who's doing work as well. So our excellence is there. We need to put a spotlight on, but we also got to make sure that there are the policies that are in place that are going to support our continued growth.
It is a conversation that has to happen. And what they have to do, Joe, is be very specific on how policies that have been passed are actually impacting folks. I said this when the vice president was in Detroit, also in Milwaukee. I think what's also helpful is to have folks in the audience and point to this business, this business, this business, this business, where you put a face on the work.
Yeah, you do. And you do two things. Step one is making sure that you let people know, Black men, whoever they may be, how what the administration has accomplished helps them on the ground, how it meets them where they are, how the person that's been talking about having a business for a long time finally got some capital, or he's got an infrastructure contract, or whatever the case may be. And then in turn, having informed them, you make them the advocates for your campaign. You make them the advocates, the guys that are going into the barbershops and into the churches and all the other places saying, hey, here's what happened for me. To really make it real, you have to start by connecting those dots so that they understand person to person how what the administration has done helps them, what the truth is, what the not so truth is, factually, otherwise, while acknowledging the leftover struggles, the struggles that we came from, and the struggles that we're still in. Then make them advocates that can in turn help to draw people and remind people of how important what we're doing now is.
Randy.
I really like how the vice president said that we have to earn their votes. I think that a lot of Black people, and as Black men, have felt as if many people feel as if their votes are guaranteed, if they're expected. So we do, as Joe was just saying, have to point it.
Looks like we lost Randy's signal there. Do we have Randy? Randy, hold on one second. We lost your signal for a bit there. So you back?
I'm here.
Yep, go ahead.
And also not talk down. I feel like a lot of people are talking down to Black men, particularly when you see like the people that Trump keeps pulling up at rallies, as if the only people that Black people relate to are rappers. I mean, that's what we have. That's who we are, and that's the only thing that we information that we'll take on and take in. I mean, talk to Black men as the intelligent, thriving men that they are, who own businesses and do care about their families and care about taking care of their families and building wealth.
Absolutely. It's a vital conversation that has to happen. And again, you have to match the policies with everything else. Politico dropped a story today, and I want to check all three of you about this here. Dropped a story today talking about how some Democratic strategists are freaking out with regards to this campaign as it relates to, in terms of how the campaign should be operating and how they are not doing enough. The headline says Dems in full-blown freak out over Biden. And so it's talking about a lot of the donor class, it's talking about a lot of the strategists, if you will. And in reading the story, I thought it was interesting because they were talking about abortion, some things along those lines. And this is the thing that I say I've made perfectly clear here. Randy, I'll start with you. They cannot think that is going to be the dominant issue. You can go to my iPad, you can actually see the story. It's not going to be the dominant issue. To me, you have to have a multi-pronged strategy here. And I've made this perfectly clear when you talk about African Americans. And it's not just African Americans, it's young voters, it's young white voters, it's Muslim voters, it's women voters, it's suburban voters. Democrats have to have, obviously, they have a much different coalition than Republicans. And what you also are seeing how Republican legislatures have been putting policies in place that are specifically made it difficult to also register folks to vote. And so coupled with, so what they want is they want a depressed turnout because they know high turnout, Democrats win. Depressed turnout, Republicans have a greater shot at winning. And frankly, the campaign to me has to be far more aggressive. And what I keep articulating over and over and over again is that you have to understand the demographic shift among African Americans. And that is voters who are 55 and under are less likely to identify as Democrats, which means you're going to have to be more aggressive in trying to go after them, spend more money in targeting them, and not just with ads, having community-based conversations. And frankly, I don't think the campaign has fully embraced that. And I think when you look at the polling numbers, you get softness there. And I've said on this show, I've said to people directly, the couch is a real foe.
Right. We are people who need to feel as if people see us, relate to our issues, and are talking with us about those issues. And abortion will not be the only issue. Is it a big issue? Absolutely. But I don't think that is going to be the biggest issue amongst African Americans, amongst us. And they have to be very pointed in our rights and how they've been taken. I mean, how, the seeds that Trump planted before he left office, how our freedoms have been limited. We care about that. We have always had to fight for freedom. And I don't see how anyone can deny that we've taken some steps backwards in the last several years due to policies and people that Trump put into office, particularly in these judge positions. So yes, we need to have those conversations, directed conversations, intentional conversations that focus on what matters to us. And they need to talk about what they've done, because some great things have been done. But there are more eligible Black voters in this 2024 election, I think 7% more than in 2020. So all we have to do is ensure that we're not just eligible, but registered and get out there to vote.
The thing here, again, when I'm talking about how you have to speak differently, Mustafa, it's because I've been out here on the ground. I've been to so many different cities. When I think back for the last 5 months, and I think back, my goodness, I've been to, obviously, Atlanta, Columbus, Ohio, been to Charlotte, been to Miami, been to Houston, been to Dallas. And I could just go on and on and on. A lot of the places where I've been speaking, where I've been traveling, I know what I'm hearing. And if you're not properly communicating, and again, an ad is one thing, but it's also understanding how you message. Terrence Whitbeer, the pollster, has said, we're seeing significant misinformation from that African Americans are seeing on Instagram and to TikTok. In fact, I saw a story today talking about how the MAGA folks are really using TikTok to go after young people and spreading misinformation, which means if these are places where misinformation is being incubated, then you've got to have a counter story, which means you've got to know how to communicate that in a certain way. And I just don't think that they're moving that quickly when we talk about that.
My dad used to have this quote. He said, "Don't tell me you love me, show me you love me." So part of showing someone that you love them, showing that you're connected to them, showing that you hear them means that you also are able to highlight how and where you have made investments inside of our communities. And they often don't do that very well. And the other part of it is that they also, for whatever reason, don't want to make the investments that are necessary in the individuals and the institutions that our folks trust. So I often wonder, are you serious about garnering more of the Black vote if you are not willing to make those investments? And then at the last minute, they'll roll things out. So that dynamic has got to change if you're serious about winning. Now, if you're not, if you're just trying to show up, then that's a different story. But if you're serious about winning, then 1, infrastructure, 2, making those investments, 3, making sure that people actually see how things are changing inside of their community, 4, making sure that you have trusted voices that individuals believe and know will not give them anything but the truth. Now, if you're afraid of the truth, then maybe you shouldn't make those investments in individuals. But our people very well see through a mess. I promised my mama I wouldn't curse. So we've got an opportunity to actually do things correctly. And we have this long laundry list of where people have made mistakes in the past. And it's like we forget very quickly. Randy talked earlier about the short memory that many people in our country have. Well, the individuals who are running these campaigns evidently have that same condition because they continue to make the same mistakes time and time again that we can fix.
And when we talk about, and see, when I talk about this idea, Mustafa, then I'm going to go to Joe, this idea of how you target. Obviously, first of all, if Black women are the #1 Democratic voters and Black men are the second highest Democratic voters, then that means is how are resources being spent. So I sort of see this thing, there are two different layers here. I think of the first layer, you obviously have Biden-Harris campaign. Then you have the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee, okay? Then you have the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, so DSCC, DCCC. Then you have the Democratic Governors Association. So that's really your first level. That's DNC as well, that's your party. And below that, then you have your second line, which is actually more money than the top line. And that is Democracy Alliance, that is HRC, that is Sierra Club, that is Future Forward, that is American Priorities PAC. That means all of the environmental organizations. Mustafa, you sent me an article that was in the New York Times saying the Biden-Harris folks are not paying a lot of attention, that black people are looking at climate. So that means those environmental groups, what is your messaging? What is your spend on black-owned media? What is your black strategy? Then you start going to your reproductive rights organizations, those PACs. How are they, do they have a very specific black outreach? Do you have ads that are tailored to African-American voters? What black groups are you spending your money with? Then you talk about American Bridge. Then you're talking about Democracy Spring. And then you start talking about Free Press Action. There's another one. I don't know, it's called United Forward or United something. I'll get the actual name. You got the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Advancement Project PAC. I can go on and on and on, naming all of these groups. But what we are talking about here, again, are billions of dollars being spent, Mustafa, and I don't actually see, and I know for a fact we've never heard from 98% of these people, you don't actually see a concerted, specific, organized, black targeted campaign with the billions that are being spent for most of these groups.
Because they take our vote for granted. They make the assumption that we will just automatically show up, that our oppression will be so strong that we will eventually say, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and vote for X, which is a miss. They're really missing the point, because there are literally a whole bunch of folks who will not show up in this election if we don't have real communication and real connection that's there. Now, let's talk real quickly about those groups that you shared, that list of individuals and organizations. I know probably 85% of them, roughly. If you take a look at their senior leadership, if you look at their decision-making bodies, often you don't see folks who look like us, especially folks who look like us who are making decisions about where dollars are going to go, whether those dollars are going out through forms of grants or contracts or whatever it is. So if, one, you have not yet evolved into the positioning of having a diversified leadership structure, then you have got to build some type of an advisory committee where you have individuals who can say, these are the folks who are out there who are actually doing the work. These are the media platforms that actually truly have the numbers that they say they do and not the faux numbers. And you should be making investments in that space. If you're not willing to do that, then you are not serious about, one, supporting the needs that exist inside of the black community. Two, you're not serious about actually also trying to encourage folks to take a serious look at these candidates and be able to vote for the individual or individuals when you look at the fullness of the set of folks who are part of, whether it's on the Democratic side, the independent side, or whatever it might be, who are going to be able to help our communities. But it really comes back to, one, making sure that you've got leadership who looks like us, who comes from our sets of experiences, because just because you look like us don't mean that you care about what's happening in our community. Two, then making sure that you are prioritizing. Let me say that again, that you are prioritizing your spends and making sure that those dollars are actually going to the places and spaces and individuals who know how to reach our people, know how to honor our people, and know how to help to make sure that real change happens.
And the thing, Joe, that that I get, and I hear people say, no, we are paying attention, we understand the importance of black voters. But what I keep stressing is, but you better understand how the black voter is changing. You better understand how you must articulate, how you must message, how you must target, what it looks like. And what often happens in these campaigns from all of these PACs, all the rest of these groups, they push tons, billions of dollars on the television. Okay, let's blanket the airwaves. But the ground game is what matters. So then the question is, how are you investing in groups on the ground? I go back to 2016. I'll never forget, Marcia Fudge was quoted when she was then Congresswoman from Ohio. She was quoted in an article in the New York Times criticizing the Hillary Clinton campaign, making perfectly clear, don't ask our people to volunteer, but you pay white folks to run to be on these campaigns. That's also part of the deal. How are you investing in ground game? All this sort of stuff matters. I talked to the folks with Black Voters Matter. Significant drop-off of investment in them after the 2020 election. They made clear you got to be organizing 365 days a year. You can't just do it when there's a campaign. And I'm very clear. If any of these people are saying, oh, we're just going to ramp up and, after the Democratic convention in August, you're screwing yourself because you've now shortened your runway and you only got 2 months, September and October. That's pretty much it. They should have been going hard in January, but I say there should be a very aggressive mechanism in place this summer, speaking to the issues. I think back to Freedom Summer. Of course, when you had the civil rights groups in the 60s, they understood that you just can't wait until after the convention. It's not, to me, that's just nonsensical.
Yeah, it is. A cursed causes shall not come. And so, God forbid they lose this thing. There will be some definite things that you can point to. Clearly, it's obvious that you have to, first of all, don't give up, like Reverend Dr. Barber would say, on people that are the, quote, unlikely voters. Every poll that you see is with likely voters. These are the people who we think are going to vote. But there's a whole lot of people, enough to make a difference in the election, that aren't considered, for whatever reason, amongst the likely voters. So how do you draw those people out? You certainly have to understand what's going on out there, and so what's out on the street. And so you have to hire people that are there doing that work. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You will know firsthand what's changing, what's evolving, how Black voters are getting different, the unique challenges that are presented with Donald Trump, where sometimes people just don't even pay attention to what he says. Some of them will remember him, in a rap video 20 or 30 years ago and think about voting for him. You have to understand those things. So you need to hire posters and understand Black voters. Naturally, that's going to mean some Black posters, Black campaign workers, strategists that understand Black people. That's going to obviously include some Black folks, groups, voting rights groups, participation groups, environmental related groups. Remember, most of these environmental things that are happening that are destroying communities are disproportionately affecting our community. If I am next door to something that has my son with asthma when he wasn't going to have it, I'm going to be more concerned about those issues. So we need to draw that out as much as possible, listen to the folks that are on the street, don't take anything for granted, and play the long game related to that.
Yep.
This shouldn't be something that they need to ramp up. They should have been ramped up already.
Yeah, one of the PAC I was talking about was Unite the Country. Frankly, Randy, this is what I want to see from every single one of them. Again, American Priorities, Unite the PAC, Emily's List, the environmental organizations, the reproductive organization. What is your Black plan? What is your Black candidate campaign plan? What is your Black outreach campaign? What is your Black-owned media campaign? How are you communicating? All of that, because billions of dollars are going to be spent. And I'm going to go back to 2016. I remember, the Hillary Clinton campaign was being stingy, did not want to fund a whole bunch of stuff in August and September, and with Black folks. And then all of a sudden, I'll never forget, I got an email on a Thursday night. They were literally trying to spend $750,000 to $1 million, and it was too late. Because here's the other thing that people don't understand. There's only a certain, this is the piece that people don't understand, in terms of whether you're talking about radio, television, or even digital. There's only a certain amount of inventory. It's only a certain amount. It's only a certain number of units. And so what you're going to see is folks who are going to be then booking that time. Well, and then the time gets more expensive the longer you wait. And so that's on the media side. But again, if you're not focused on the ground game, looking at the numbers, where do you need your most help? If I'm anybody on a Democratic Progressive PAC or the campaign or the DNC or any of these people, I'm going, how did 50,000 fewer folks vote in Milwaukee in 2022 compared to 2018? Mandela Barnes would be United States Senator. We would not have that MAGA fool Ron Johnson if that didn't happen. Okay, so I'm sitting here going, again, if I'm on the campaign side, I'm going, what happened to those 50,000? Where did they go? I'm looking at those precinct numbers. I'm trying to see where they are. Then what I'm saying is, if I want to win Wisconsin, I can't have a 50,000 vote drop-off. I'm looking at Charlotte, and I'm trying to see, okay, because Biden lost North Carolina by about 2.5 points in 2020. I'm sitting there going, okay, where did we lose last time? Where did Sherry Beasley lose by 100,000 some odd votes in 2022? Is it in rural North Carolina? I'm also then studying Georgia, which barely won, and go, hey, wait a minute. Warnock is not on the ballot in 2024. Ossoff, not on the ballot in 2024. So Georgia is totally different than it was in 2020. Okay, how am I doing this? Then what I'm sitting here doing, I'm looking at North Carolina, I'm going, I got crazy MAGA black dude Mark Robinson running on that side. I got Josh Stein running on this side. Okay, how am I coordinating with the Josh Stein campaign to say, hey, and Democratic Governors Association, on how are we spending resources to actually cover both? Then I'm just looking at the same thing going, okay, we lost the House. All right, how are we targeting these congressional districts in New York that we lost in 2022 to flip those in 2024 to retake the House? And then, what's the impact on black voters? That, to me, should be happening because at the end of the day, you want to win. And the dumbest thing in the world to me is to be sitting on millions of dollars in cash after you lost an election because you said we couldn't afford it, or frankly, we wanted to be cheap and not spend the money. Randy.
You're speaking my language. The number one thing you do in sales is know your audience, because at the end of the day, we're selling. We have to sell ourselves. We have to sell our agenda. We have to sell our party, and it's sales. Know your audience. You can't even have a plan. The fact that they're presenting plans in the beginning of these campaigns, and I do think they're presenting the same plan that they've been doing over and over again because they're not paying attention, like you said, to their audience. Who are Black people today? We're not monolithic, but how do we speak to all of them? Who's missing? Why aren't they showing up at the polls? Why do they feel disenfranchised? And how do we speak to them about what they want to hear and what they need to hear and what they care about?
This is, again, when I look at certain things in this campaign, Mustafa, when I look at language, when I hear, democracy is in trouble. Okay, that's a broad statement. It's a broad statement. And I go back to what I was talking about. I mean, there's a story out of the story the AP did that was amazing, that literally they passed a law in 2021 that said that individuals who were being compensated could not help voters register. And the organization out of Texas said, well, damn, how are we going to hire high school students and college students? See, what people don't understand is how diabolical they have been and how they've been passing these laws in terms of, because what it's done is it's had a chilling effect on third-party groups because that's who they've been targeting. They've been targeting third-party groups because that's who made the difference. Let me be clear, Mustafa. If it wasn't for third-party groups, Warnock does not win in Georgia. He doesn't win in Georgia without third-party groups. That's how he beat Herschel Walker, because they were on the ground aggressive, and because the Warnock campaign, frankly, by the mid-September, they hadn't bought a single ad in any Black newspaper in the state. They were asleep. They were taking things for granted. And so this is what I'm talking about, because the thing here, and if anybody who's listening or watching, I need you to understand what I'm about to say. Elections are won on the margins now. Yeah. Arizona, Georgia, 10, 12,000 votes. 2016, Trump wins the presidency because of 77,000 votes in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. 77,000 total votes in 3 states. If you go to 2020, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia, Arizona, the number for Biden is about 220,000 out of the million votes cast. This is going to be an election on the margins, meaning 200, 300 here, 500 here, 600 here, 1,000 here. Mustafa, that's the election. That's the whole state. And so that's what I'm talking about here, how you must, and Republicans understand that, because for their deal is if I can decrease the voter turnout, then if I can shave off 400, 600, 1,000, 200, 800, that's the margins.
It is. I mean, if we could get people to understand that every vote matters, and if we treat it like that, then that means that we'll make the investments that are necessary, because we know that this is a razor-thin election that's going on. And that means that you've got to have the folks who are on the ground, the entities on the ground who know the folks, who can help to make sure there's the proper messaging. Cultural competency is incredibly important, and making sure that the right messaging is there. But the message has to also be linked with real change that's happening and the additional change that will come if you get my vote. And sometimes people fail for whatever reason to understand the continualness of that process. So we're in a moment now where we know where many of the states and the districts that are going to play a critical role, and you've got to make the investments there. But I also ask folks to not forget other individuals across the country and other locations that may not be in that handful of states that will help to move the election in one direction or the other. Because if we're truly going to say that we love the individuals and we love these communities, then we've got to make that real. So yes, I understand the focus that's necessary in those particular sets of states. But we also got to make sure that people know, whether they're in Alaska or they're in Wyoming or wherever Black folks might be in West Virginia, that you're not forgotten as well, as we make sure that we also have that focus set of actions.
Last point here, Joe, and that is when I say go back to the micro-targeting, if you will. I'm just going to use this show as an example. There are people out there, you don't have as many people watching US CNN, because I'm not trying to be CNN. I'm not trying to reach everybody. I'm not. I understand the audience. I understand who I'm serving. And the number of people, I was in Houston on Memorial Day weekend, the number of people who were there for the Coalition of Trade Black Unionists, they were all there, people all around the country who were talking about the show and what they love and issues that we cover. Now, going through the airports, same thing, people stopping me everywhere. Because it's called understanding how do you serve your audience? How do you super serve? Tom Jordan would always use this phrase. You must super serve your audience. And I think what often happens in politics, you'll have these strategists who go, but if we want to reach a large swath of people, we could go over here. Okay, that's fine. But the people over there watching, how many actually understand the issues? How many are persuadables? How many ain't gonna vote at all? So what I'm talking about is you have to understand how to have a broad strategy, a micro strategy. And when I keep saying elections are on the margins, that was what Virginia, who is now the Virginia Speaker of the House, Don Scott, said, where he told folks, they said, I don't understand why you're bringing Roland Martin in to do his show. He said, because we're going to win on the margins. He said 200, 300, 400 votes can make the difference between us gaining the House or Republicans controlling it. And that's how they won, because he understood the margins. And that, to me, is what all these groups who are going to spend 2022 $9 billion was the total amount spent on the 2022 election. It'll exceed 10 billion easy this year. They better understand margins, and they better understand that you can't run a campaign in 2024 that you ran in 2020 or 2016 because the voter is totally different. That person who was 12 in 2016, that person now is 20.
Yeah, and they can't take for granted, Democrats can't take for granted that just because their parents voted for Democrats, or have historically voted for Democrats, or their grandmother doesn't want them to vote for anybody other than a Democrat, that's exactly what they're going to do. So that's exactly what targeting is. You're shooting at a target, but there has to be a reason as well, right? If you go and decide that you're going to blanket something and do it everywhere, then now that's fine, except if the people that you need to draw out are in this small, more focused group, then, and you have a way to target them directly, that's something that you're supposed to do. Well, it'd be crazy. It would be like my friend here, Pete Aguilar, doing something for all of Los Angeles. To reach this targeted audience in the Inland Empire, your choices are you either do something super targeted or you go LA, where people can't vote for you. So you have to be focused about what it is that you need to do. You understand you need to do. And data is everything. There is publicly available data that lets you know precisely who to target, where the votes are, how people voted for you before, who didn't, who did, why, etc. Take that information, process it, and now you can be targeted and focused about who you want and why, knowing precisely how many votes you need, where they're going to come from. That's going to give you a much better shot. There's no points for shooting while blindfolded. Okay, because you really could miss, and there's a better chance that you do miss, particularly when the blinds can come off and you have data that lets you know exactly where to shoot.
You know what? I love it when new fools show themselves. There's some idiot in our chat, Jupiter 1000, Roland and Boulay Shields are tap dancing for biscuits by Democrats, LOL. They love all your tap dancing. Okay, Jupiter. What are your issues? See, the reality is, when I'm looking at candidates and I'm looking at elections, I look at issues. I go down the line. Why are all of these billionaires who were dogging Trump after January 6th, why, like Steve Schwarzman, Blackstone CEO, why are they now announcing, like BlackRock CEO, why are they now announcing they're going to be supporting Trump? Easy. Because the Trump tax cuts expire in 2025. Mm-hmm. Why are Silicon Valley multimillionaires and billionaires who have been supporting Democratic candidates now attending fundraisers for Trump? Easy. Because they saw how easy Trump can be bought off. Donald Trump railed against TikTok. And all of a sudden, a big donor last name Yaz started giving Donald Trump money. He also is funding RFK Jr. I'm sorry. He also has a major stake in TikTok. He wants to buy TikTok if the United States is successful in forcing the sale of TikTok. Donald Trump completely changed his tune after Homeboy started giving his campaign money. Yep. Donald Trump went to Big Oil and said to them, go out, give me $1 billion. I'm going to get rid of all of these regulations from President Joe Biden. Now, keep in mind, the United States has produced more oil than we ever have in American history. We are actually absolutely energy independent. Oh, I'm sorry, but they say we're not. That's why they're funding Trump. So, Jupiter, when you talk about, okay, what are the issues you care about? Where you at? Oh, he goes, my issues are illegals and inflation. Bet you won't talk about illegals in New York City or Chicago affecting the black community. Well, actually, we have, Jupiter, because you're an idiot. Because why is it affecting black folks in those cities? Because the red state governors sent them to those cities for fools like you to say these very things. That's what you somehow don't understand. See, Jupiter, here's why you also are pretty dumb at this. Why has Texas picked up additional seats in the House in the last 2 decades after the census? Because of population growth. Where did it come from, Jupiter? Do you see how clueless you are? Do you understand that you were played by people like Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis because their whole deal was, let's send these folks to Chicago in New York because we can sit here and get black folks and get them hyped emotionally and pissed off by this? Oh, you didn't realize that, huh? Oh, but you also said, Jupiter, that you're bothered by inflation. That's interesting. Do you understand corporate profits? Do you understand how all of these companies in the last 3 years have announced record profits? I mean, I'm talking, when I say record, I mean like record profits. Oh, Jupiter, have you ever wondered how did they get those record profits? Oh, high food prices. Oh, I wonder now what is causing inflation. High food prices. Because see, in 2020 and 2021, when COVID hit, we had supply chain issues coming out of, not necessarily coming out of COVID, but in 2022, 2023, we begin to see those supply chain issues disappear. So why then did we still have the same issue with high prices? It wasn't because goods and services were higher. It wasn't because all of a sudden we're jacking up the price of wages. Oh, now I know what it is. It was those high prices. So now you understand it. Matter of fact, right here, let me pull this up. This is something from Robert Reich. You know who that is, Jupiter? Former labor secretary. He goes, memo to the media, don't write about corporations suddenly lowering prices without mentioning how their profits have been skyrocketing or their tax bills have been shrinking. They could have kept prices lower all along. They chose not to. Give people the full picture. See, that's what fools like Jupiter don't want to accept. They don't want to accept corporate greed. They don't want to accept how we have seen these individuals literally getting rich off the taxpayers, giving their CEOs massive bonuses for increasing profits. That's what has been causing inflation to stay sky high. Now, please, Jupiter, tell me how Republicans are going to lower inflation when they're the same people who voted against the Inflation Reduction Act. And guess what happened? After it passed, you begin to see inflation go down. Republicans continue to tell you that gas prices are sky high. Jupiter, did you not hear the testimony where the oil and gas folks were busted for colluding to keep prices high? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you skip the part where Donald Trump literally said he reached out to the oil tycoons and said, hey, don't cut production, or don't actually cut production, that way you can drive prices higher? See what happens when you get exposed with facts? Oh, by the way, when Congress passed a bill to stop price gouging, who voted against it, meaning all of them? If I recall, Mustafa, I think it was Republicans who voted against the bill to stop price gouging. So it's a little hard, Jupiter, when folks like you suggest that, throw Biden out because they're not tackling inflation when they are. And the people who could have voted to lower inflation voted against the same Inflation Reduction Act. This ain't the 5, Jupiter. We deal in facts. I'll be right back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Somebody's killing poor people, and it's going on.
When COVID happened, poor people were dying at a rate already of 800 people a day.
before COVID. If you went to a funeral every single day, it would take you 600 years to attend all the funerals of the people who will die from the ravages of policy violence, poverty, and low wages in America in just 1 year. It would take you 2 years and 19 days to go to all of the funerals of the people that will die today, and oftentimes silence. Nobody talks about this political genocide, but we are determined today to remember their death and be a resurrection of voting power and voice power like never before.
Economic justice and saving this democracy are deeply connected. We, as a nation, must listen to the demands of the poor, who are pushing and will continue to push political candidates and elected leaders to lift from the bottom so that everybody can rise.
We are the poor, the marginalized, and the underpaid. And we are taking one step forward to say that everybody has a right to live.
Poverty is not the fault of those who are impoverished. It is caused by those who make the policy.
There are over 135 million poor and low-wage, low-income people in this nation.
The biggest block of potential voters by far is low-income, low-wage voters.
I can't afford medicine. Sometimes I have to skip because of the cost.
The farm worker community is tired of the violence imposed upon us by greed, exclusion, and denial of basic human rights.
Those folk that represented by that casket, poor and low-wage workers who are the most moral people in this country because they go to work every day believing, even though going to work is hazardous to their health.
I'm tired of working 70 to 80 hours a week and still not have money for the necessity of bills. I'm tired of getting sick and not being able to go see the doctor, having to make a choice to pay between rent or the light bill or food or clothes.
You cannot claim to care about families and a culture of life and then do everything in your power to rob people of equal access to resources and to force them to live in poverty.
Leadership of both parties have waged war on poor people and low-wage workers.
And this government has treated people experiencing poverty, including their military families, with disdainful, deliberate, malicious neglect.
So the truth is that my son died from poverty.
We refuse to accept poverty as the fourth leading cause of death.
The fourth leading cause of death in this, the richest country in the world.
We march today for our children and the generations to come.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
We will voice our demands and register our vote.
When we stand up and when we stand together, things change.
There is the electorate that is, and then there is the electorate that should be.
34 million eligible poor and low-income voters did not vote in 2016. If just 20% of those voters in swing states were mobilized around an agenda, they could change the political outcome of every election. So we're launching the most massive voter mobilization and turnout campaign in history of poor and low-wage voters, allies, and religious leaders.
People are dying, but we know it doesn't have to be this way. And so we are calling on everyone to join us in this Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival.
We are here, we will be seen, we will be heard, and our power will be felt. We don't need to be an insurrection. We are a resurrection that will be felt across this country. Are you ready? 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 We are a resurrection, and we are ready.
And we won't be silent
This is Essence Atkins.
Mr. Love King of R&B, Raheem Devon.
It's me, Sherry Shepard, and you know what you watch.
You're watching Roland Martin, Unfiltered.
So, radio host Michael Schmerkonish asked this question on his podcast. In what decade was America the greatest? Well, guess what? This was a daily poll, so you know how one of those things go. So, 23.21% said the 1950s was America's greatest decade. 11.4% said that we are currently living in the best decade. Now, also what came in second was the 1940s. See, the reason this is always interesting, Randy, because when you look at how Republicans run for office, they are very good, and I'm going to show you something here. They're very good here when we talk about these things, and sort of how they have this glow among themselves about things. And I started laughing because Dennis Quaid, who is a Donald Trump supporter, Dennis Quaid is playing Ronald Reagan in this new movie. And these people got really upset with me because I made a comment when I saw the trailer on social media. I said, wow, no shock of a movie on Ronald Reagan, there were no black people in the trailer. And I said that, and so do this here. Give me a split screen. Give me a me in this, because I don't want anybody to think that this is a commercial on the show. So I want y'all to give me a split screen when I run this deal here. So again, this Reagan movie is coming out. And the reason this poll is so important is because this actually speaks to what I'm talking about here. It goes to speak to in terms of how white America has this very rosy view of the 1950s. And remember, that's how Reagan, what was it, Morning in America or some Shining Hill? Bob Dole's campaign, same thing. Donald Trump using the language, make America great again. And so you have these people who have this worldview of things were just so great for America in the 1950s after World War II. Which people? I mean, they weren't that great for black people. And they really weren't that great for women, including white women. So really we're talking about white men. But I need people to understand how that language is. See, they've created this fictitious, that whole Ozzie and Harriet world where dad comes home and mom is well dressed in an apron and has dinner ready, and the kids, they all sit down. That was white people.
Right.
Now, black folks were preparing dinner as well. And you had dad coming home as well, but dad was bitching because he couldn't get a job because of racism and Jim Crow, and likely had to ride the back of the bus. But that's the whole deal. But again, so they're teeing up this Reagan movie. I just want y'all to see how they just gloss over all that black stuff, the little black things, the little black things with Reagan. Watch this.
Welcome to your life.
There's nothing a retired governor can do, but a president, now he can do a thing or two.
Everybody wants to rule the world.
I will be frank with you that as a citizen, I would not like to see any political party outlawed on the basis of its ideology, because I still believe, Mr. Chairman, that democracy can handle it.
I was a brand new KGB officer, given my first intelligence assignment. A certain actor and union leader.
Dutch, there's a purpose for your life.
You can run from a bully for so long, but after a while, you're gonna have to stand up to him.
There's my boy!
There's about to be another war right here in Hollywood. The commies on one side, the mob on the other. And you're right in the middle, son.
If you put as much work into your career as you do making your speeches, you'd have an Oscar by now.
Hello, I'm Nancy Davis.
Hello, Nancy Davis. I'm Ron Reagan.
I'm curious, Ron.
What would you say is the issue of our time?
No question about it. Communism and the Soviet Union.
Get in the game. Run for office.
It's you!
I'm running for governor, and I would like your vote.
I forgot your name.
Do his initials help, or R?
Honey, Roy Rogers is here! And he's running for governor!
Ronnie, remember when we met? You told me that you wanted to make a difference in this world. You know what you have to do.
Governor Reagan, again, typically is against such a proposal.
There you go again.
But he was not afraid to take us on.
There's nothing a retired governor can do about the Soviets, but a president, Now you can do a thing or two.
Welcome to your life.
I was a lifeguard on a river.
There's no turning back.
And I learned how to read the currents. Not just the ones on the surface, but also the ones deep underneath the water. I am about to start the biggest war of this century, and I'm not going to fire a single shot.
You're going to blow up 8 years of diplomacy.
Well, if you think that got their undies in a wad, you just wait.
What did the president know, and when did he know it?
What would you have me do?
I want you to fight.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Wants to rule the world.
So you sat there, and I'm going to take you to a quote. He said, I learned how to read the currents, top and underneath the water as well. Now, y'all notice when you saw that, you ain't see no black people. You didn't see no black people. Matt Iglesias wrote this piece, 2007, called Reagan's Race Record. And in this particular piece, he talked about that record. And y'all gonna love this here, this part right here, but that which Sidney Blumenthal wrote. Reagan opposed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. He opposed the Voting Rights Act of 1965, calling it humiliating to the South. He ran for governor, promising to get rid of the Fair Housing Act off the books. This was a quote from the same Ronald Reagan. If an individual wants to discriminate against Negroes or others in selling or renting his home, he has a right to do so. Oh, when Reagan announced he was running, what did he do? He traveled to the county fair in Neshoba, Mississippi, to declare, I believe in states' rights. What happened in Neshoba County? Oh, that's where 3 freedom riders, Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner, were mutilated and decapitated and murdered in 1964. This is the same Ronald Reagan who vetoed the bill when it came to opposing apartheid in South Africa. It was overwritten by Congress by huge margins. So when you look at that, so this wonderful, glossy, wonderful, rose-colored view of Ronald Reagan, it goes perfectly with that particular poll because that's how they view America. We were so great and wonderful back then. And that right now, Joe, is present in our politics today because that literally is what Donald Trump is saying with the Great Replacement theory. They're trying to get rid of us. Let's go back to the great old days of the 50s when those Negroes were kept in place and things were just so wonderful for us white folk.
You hear folks talking about, let's take our country back. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, who has it? We've been here before, right? The thing that Trump is talking about is not different from what Ronald Reagan talked about. Most kids with a student loan, significant student loan debt, have Ronald Reagan to thank. Because there was a spirit there that basically said we don't want an equal playing field as it pertains to people getting college degrees and getting them debt-free. His effect on those that are the least of us was absolutely devastating, and it created, and it will continued on, the wealth gap that we still see. It started the perpetuation of some things that have continued, and now fast forward, not different than the buttons that Giuliani pushed when he became mayor, not different than the buttons Trump pushed that made him convert from being a Democrat who provided money to Obama to Republican in order to do it because he knew that he had a gullible audience. And so, it's interesting. I mean, it's going to be very rosy. They're going to look at it through the lens of getting rid of communism and the Cold War, et cetera. But the effect on people in this country us, regular people. That's why you have to ask when you say the 50s was our best decade. Well, why was the 50s our best decade? They will talk about, without necessarily mentioning race, the things that were great about their lives, something that other people didn't necessarily share. People that were out of their space would not have had. And so, it's interesting. I mean, I think I'm gonna go see it just to know kind of what they're saying. But, if you really dig into history and look at what Ronald Reagan did, then you'll understand the Trump playbook, frankly, and see where it comes from. And now, again, we're talking about this return, but there's a real threat of being outnumbered at the same time, which makes it all the more urgent.
In this piece here, Mustafa, as President Reagan aligned his Justice Department on the side of segregation, supporting the fundamentalist Bob Jones University in its case seeking federal funds for institutions that discriminate on the basis of race. In 1983, when the Supreme Court decided against Bob Jones, Reagan, under fire from his right in the aftermath, gutted the Civil Rights Commission. Again, this is the thing that people need to understand when you hear that. And so what do? Well, let's just present Ronnie in his cowboy hat, riding his horse in California, talking about communism, and let's tear that wall down. When the fact of the matter is, he wanted to keep a whole bunch of segregated walls up against black folks in this country. Especially when you think about he was the one who created this fictitious welfare queen. Never existed. But he played into the racist tropes, and white America just loved it, and it still persists today.
It sure does. It's amazing, the whitewashing of history and how you can make someone who's not only a racist, but somebody who had intentionality and trying to deconstruct the basic building blocks inside of our communities and access to programs that all taxpayers should have the ability to be able to benefit from. Reagan wasn't interested in that. And most folks, unfortunately, as I often talk about, only know the bumper stickers. They don't know the individual, the damage and destruction that he did to our communities. They don't know the damage and destruction he did in putting an EPA administrator who tried to do everything that she could to actually take away those basic protections around air and water and not being exposed to toxic chemicals. And we know the communities are the ones who are most impacted in that space. So you got to be real careful when people have privilege and they do this whitewashing, because what you'll find is that they will make America sound like at one time it was a loving place where everyone had equal opportunity. You could be a black soldier and come back home and have the same rights to be able to buy a home as a white soldier did. But we know that that's not true. But if you look through the lens of the whitewashing, then you won't be able to have the honest understanding of where we've been. And you mentioned also about this moment. It's interesting. When you look at as racist and destructive as Reagan was in some of his policies, he would not even be able probably to be a voice inside of the current Republican Party. Based upon the things that they say that they now believe in. So that tells you how bad they were and how far they have went, even in a more destructive pattern. Now, they can change that if they want to by actually having policy that cares about humanity and uplifts all, but that's theirs to figure out if they want to do that or not. But by no means was Reagan ever anyone who was beneficial to people of color in this community, and in particular, black folks.
So I guess when you look at again how they want to go back to the way things were, Randy, we see this again, the whole attack against CRT, DEI, it's all of that. I mean, they really wish for that old America when things were just so simpler, when you black folks knew your place.
Well, I could understand how white men would want it to go back to the way that it was, because they didn't have to consider anybody. And it wasn't just black people, it was their own wives. But, people don't remember that part of it when they advocate for people like Reagan. Look, this is a country who has always rewritten history to put white males in particular as the heroes. And the scary thing about that is, those who are in control and write our history are very much have a lot of power in our future, which is why we need to do our own studying, which is why we need your network, Roland, because people will actually believe what they're taught. This is why they fought so hard to ensure that there was not any programs in any schools that taught the real history of America. This is a country that puts pictures and movies that of the civil rights movement in black and white to make us feel as if it was a long, long time ago. This is a country that has movies where our people were enslaved, and they're very clean and break out into song. They're just so happy and joyous. I mean, this is a country where we have a governor that said that we learned a lot and slavery was actually good for us. Being enslaved was good for us. So, you know, they are writing the narrative, and those who choose to remain ignorant will embrace and eat it up. So this movie about Reagan is right along with the propaganda that they've always sold us. And the sad part is that a lot of people will believe it. There will be people besides white men who will go and say, wow, those were the good old days. Look at that right there. And isn't that what we want to get back to and making America, you know, good again? And they don't even realize, like, I particularly look at white women and the way they keep voting. I mean, they are really drinking the Kool-Aid and believing that they had all these rights, although even today, rights are every day being taken from them. But they rather believe in the fantasy. They are buying it up and eating it up because, you know, like I said from the beginning, you know, white men have been the ones who have written their history. So how powerful is that? Is to be able to tell your own story from your perspective in the way you want people to view you. And of course, that perspective is always white males saving the day, America's great, and everybody's happy. And those who look back, who are either alive or read real, you know, and read from different sources, know that that was not the case. I mean, Reagan was outwardly anti-Black in every way possible. And I don't even see how anybody can deny that, from his economics to his how he felt about how justice was served. I mean, in every way. So, you know, but of course they're going to make him be a hero. And those, like you just had the Jupiter guy who clearly his brain is out of this world, who choose to believe in the propaganda will believe it, and they will choose their voting, and unfortunately, and they make their decisions based on it. They need a reality check, though. Like you said, we talk about facts over here. We talk about facts.
There you go, and we're gonna keep doing that. All right, y'all, we come back. The 911 tapes regarding the shooting of Airman Fordson been released. We'll play some of that for you when we come back. Roland Martin Unfiltered, the Black Star Network. Support us by joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Senior check and money order, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Also, be sure to download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Back in a moment.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, we're talking about the difficulty of being able to acquire wealth for Black Americans. My guest, Emily Flitter, is the author of The White Wall, How Big Finance is Bankrupting Black Americans.
The bad stuff that you feel when you're dealing with the financial services industry is not your fault. It's not your fault, and you don't deserve to be treated like this.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
On the next A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie, we're talking all things mental health and how helping others can help you. We all have moments where we have struggles, and on this week's show, our guests demonstrate how helping others can also help you. Why you should never stop giving and serving others on a next A Balanced Life here on Black Star Network.
Hey, it's John Murray, the executive producer of the new Sherry Shepherd Talk Show.
This is your boy, Earthquake.
And you're tuned in to
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, the death of Airman Roger Forston is still shameful to even have to deal with. The Okaloosa County, Florida Sheriff's Office, they've now released official calls and records from the fatal confrontation between Forston and a sheriff's deputy. Here's the first non-emergency call that led the deputy to his apartment on May 3rd.
Sheriff's Office, how can I help you?
Hi, I was just wondering, I work here at an apartment complex on Racetrack, and I just had a resident call. Sounds like he's fighting with someone else, and she's saying that it sounds like it's getting a little bit out of control.
Okay.
But we can't go there to confront them, so I was wondering if you guys can send a cop out for that.
Okay, what's the address?
It's going to be 319 Racetrack Road Northwest is the exact address of the building. And then the apartment number is going to be 1401.
Okay, 1401. Okay. And are they currently still fighting?
Yes, I literally just got off the phone with her. She said that it's been going on for like 15 to 20 minutes, and she said that when she called me, she said that she was calling me because it sounded like it was starting to get out of hand.
Okay, and do you know if it's verbal or
a man
physical?
and a woman. That she said that it sounded like it started getting physical, so I'm not really sure.
Okay. And what's your name?
So if the cops can't find it, I can take them to the apartment.
Okay. And you said you are front desk at the leasing apartment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and is there any way you're able to hear or see them?
I can walk by there right now and see if I can hear them. She says that it happens often, but it's never gotten this out of hand, is what she said.
It was made after the unnamed deputy fired multiple shots at Forston within seconds of him opening the door.
911, what is the address of the emergency? The fire department there?
Police, please.
And what's the unit number?
They've been arguing for almost an hour now.
So we have deputies on scene with that, ma'am.
Okay.
Can I just, for the 911 call, could I just get your name and the phone number you're calling from? Okay. Have you heard anything else other than the arguing?
Yeah, I just heard, I promise you, it sounded like 3 or 4 gunshots, and then a bunch of running and screaming.
Okay.
And I know there's a kid up there.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm freaking out.
Yeah, we have our deputies on scene there with them now. Just for your safety, just maintain, stay in your apartment.
Okay.
And just for now, we're trying to clear the scene too, okay?
Okay. Is everybody okay?
I can't answer that. Okay. But we do have help on the way.
Looks like that apartment manager or whoever they were literally called and they went to the wrong apartment. That brother is dead. And so the investigation in this continues. And so we'll give the latest when we find out. Folks, during the House Oversight Committee hearing, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley sounded the alarm on the far-right manifesto Project 2025. Folks, of course, it is a 1,000-page manifesto that outlines a radical agenda to increase the powers of the executive branch if Donald Trump wins. Diminish rights for protections for LGBTQ individuals, immigrants, women, people of color, and dismantling key government agencies. Project 2025's recommendations raise concerns about the potential erosion of civil liberties and the rule of law in the United States. Here's what she had to say.
The federal government has the largest and most diverse workforce in the country, and Schedule F, an executive order that would replace tens of thousands of civil servants with partisan sycophants, would destroy our government infrastructure, destroy it. It is critical that we understand that the far-right extremists who are advocating for Schedule F see it as a means to an end. It is their pathway to enact widespread, wholesale policy violence. One thing I know for sure about Trump and his sycophants is that they telegraph their harm. Mr. Shriver, are you familiar with Project 2025?
Congresswoman, I've read about that.
For many people, this is their first time hearing about it, and we must sound the alarm. Project 2025 is a far-right manifesto. It is a 1,000-page bucket list of extremist policies that would uproot every government agency and disrupt the lives of every person who calls this country home. I won't detail every aspect, but I'll share some highlights. The Department of Education would be eliminated, cutting students off from civil rights protections and ending essential Title I funding for K through 12 schools. The Department of Justice would go on a murdering spree. It would rush to use the death penalty and expand its use to even more people while circumventing due process protections. Project 25 not only calls for national book bans in schools, but also creates a list of banned words for the federal government that would be deleted from, quote, every federal rule, agency regulation, contract, grant, and piece of legislation that exists. End quote. Here are just a few of the words on the list: diversity, gender, reproductive health, and of course, conservatives want to ban the word abortion. On that note, abortion care would be inaccessible and illegal no matter where you live. Take it from them. On page 6 of its playbook, Project 2025 states, quote, the Dobbs decision is just the beginning, end quote. People, even in my district, the Massachusetts 7th, a leader in repro justice, would be criminalized for pursuing essential health care. Now, we could have an entire hearing on how these policies would quite literally ruin and end lives. And I didn't even touch upon proposals for housing, climate change, worker protections, and more. If enacted, Project 2025 would destroy the federal government as we know it. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an Associated Press article titled, Conservative Groups Draw Up Plan to Dismantle the U.S. Government and to Replace It with Trump's Vision.
Without objection to order.
Now, some may be wondering why this is germane to today's hearing with the Office of Personnel Management. Mr. Shriver, do you know who the director of Project 2025 is?
No, Congresswoman, I don't.
The director is Paul Dans, former chief of staff of OPM under the Trump administration. And I am concerned about the ethics of Mr. Dans leveraging non-public information or relationships forged during his government service to lead and advance this far-right extremist agenda. We need oversight and accountability of Project 2025.
I don't think folks really are paying attention, Joe, when we talk about how lethal and how sick and demented Project 2025 is, especially if Trump wins.
It's a serious problem. My mom worked for the federal government, Department of Veterans Affairs for 40 years. And I can imagine how someone in that position, in the position she was in, or in a similar agency, could potentially, you've got property right in your job, could potentially be taken away from you because you don't swear an oath of allegiance, or someone feels like you're in Tory, whatever else, or somebody feels like you're the Department of Education and you shouldn't exist anymore. People really need to pay attention. This is where the urgency comes from for me. Anyone in this country who's dependent on the government at all for financial help. Now, there's other things, but let's make it the most personal this way. Anybody that gets a government check needs to be extremely concerned about what's going on here and what is being planned, because they're basically going to eliminate all the safeguards, all the rules, and effectively stay in charge even while being outnumbered. And so, I don't want to be less than sympathetic, and ultimately, I'm a faith person. Faith without works is dead, so we'll continue doing the work. But if somebody a year, 2, 3 years from now, who didn't vote or who voted the wrong way has any complaint about anything in that playbook, it's a 1,000-page book. It exists. They're telling you what they're going to do. It's like somebody that thought that they could tame a snake, and the snake bites them, and they said, but I treated you good. And the snake says, but you knew I was a snake at the very beginning. So we better make our mind up and understand this is not about personalities. Maybe Biden isn't as congenial or as exciting as Barack Obama or Robert Kennedy. Maybe he's long in the tooth. But there's a very, very profound and stark choice that we have to make here. And only with one will the Constitution continue to exist on some level as we know it. There'll still be fights, but you'll at least have people at the top that want the Constitution to still be honored, et cetera, because out goes a lot of the things that we count on. And so we better be careful and be aware. They're not hiding where they're going with this.
Yep.
Go read the book.
Yep.
Go read the book.
It's real clear. And listen, Randy, all these people were sitting there, oh my God, I can't believe Roe v. Wade was overturned. They kept telling you that. What the hell were you not paying attention?
They are not hiding. They've what they want. They told us what they're going to do. They've outlined the plan. Like they said, a 1,000-page document. So if people don't know or try to act like they don't know, it's cognitive dissonance. They don't want to know. And, of course, I haven't read the entire document, but the pieces I have read are scarier than anything Steven Spielberg ever wrote. They really want to completely change the government where it looks going to look more like a dictatorship. It's terrifying.
Yeah, and they are who they are, and they absolutely don't give a damn about the environment, Mustafa.
No, they don't. They want to get rid of the EPA just like they do at the Department of Education. It's interesting. One, I really appreciate this show, Roland, and Black Star Network. And here's some of the reasons why. So when I first found out about Project 2025, I reached out to a whole bunch of folks we'll know in the media world and said, hey, you should pay attention to this. And I got crickets. And then, of course, this show was one of the first to start talking about Project 2025 and that people should actually pay attention to it. You should read for yourself, and then you should ask the question, how will this benefit my community? And the question or the answer will be that it is not going to benefit your community. It's going to continue to roll back many of the small wins that we have. Joe mentioned also about folks who check from the federal government, how it will impact them. It's much broader than that. It is that. But it is also about all of the things that happen in your life are tied to one of those agencies or departments inside of the federal government, whether it is housing or transportation or food or jobs or civil rights. All of these things will be radically changed, radically weakened, that will have impacts inside of your life. It is also about that the federal government is one of the largest employers of people of color. So they're going to move many of these people out and bring in their own folks. And you saw how many people of color actually worked underneath of the last administration that Trump had. So there are all of these layers that you have to unpack. But the basic thing to remember is that if somebody is not moving forward with a plan that is going to help your life be better, that is going to better protect your community, that is going to strengthen our country, then why would we support it or the individuals who are moving forward? And of course, if you unpack it, it is right-wing nationalists and racists who are the ones who put this plan together. So for Black folks, the question would be, do you think that any of these right-wing nationalists and racists have any indication that they ever want to do anything to help your community? And if the answer is no, why would you support them or this plan?
Simple as that. All right, folks, coming back, Marketplace, where we talk about a business that's focusing on HBCU style of cheerleading. That's next right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Be sure to support the work that we do. We're the only daily 2-hour news show, folks, focusing on issues that matter to African Americans. Ain't nobody else doing this. A whole bunch of other people out there, Black targeted, Black-owned media. They don't do what we do every single day on this show on the Black Star Network. So support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. The goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. You can support us via check or money order. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal, Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And download the Black Star Network app. We're trying to get 100,000 downloads. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Back in a moment. lot of y'all have been asking me about the pocket squares that we have available on our website. You see me rocking the Shibori pocket square right here. It's all about looking different. Now look, summertime is coming up. Y'all know, I keep trying to tell fellas, change your look, please. You can't wear athletic shoes every damn wear. So if you're putting on linen suits, if you're putting on some summer suits, have a whole different look. The reason I like this particular pocket square, the Shibori, is because it's sort of like a flower and looks pretty cool here versus the traditional boring silk pocket squares. But also I like being a little different as well. So this is why we have these custom-made feather pocket squares on the website as well. My sister actually designed these after a few years ago. I was in this battle with Steve Harvey at Essence, and I saw this at a St. Jude fundraiser. I saw this feather pocket square, and I said, well, I got some ideas. So I hit her, and she sent me about 30 different ones. And so this completely changes your look. Now, some of you men out there, I had some dudes say, oh, man, I can't wear that. Well, if you ain't got swagger, that's not my problem. But if you're looking for something different to spruce up your look, fellas, ladies, if y'all looking to get your man a good gift, I've run into brothers all across the country with the feather pocket squares saying, see, check mine out. And so it's always good to see them. And so this is what you do. Go to RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. You can order Shibori pocket squares or the custom-made pocket squares. Now, for the Shiboris, we're out of a lot of the different colors, and I think we're down to about 200 or 300. So you want to get your order in as soon as you can, because here's what happened. I got these several years ago, and the Japanese company signed a deal with another company, and I bought them before they signed that deal, and so I can't get access to any more from the company in Japan that makes them. And so get yours now. So come summertime, when I see y'all at Essence, y'all could be looking fly with the Shibori pocket square or the custom-made pocket square. Again, RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. Go there now.
What's up, y'all? This is Wendell Haskins, a.k.a. Win Hogan at the Original T Golf Classic. And you know I watch Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Every Tuesday, we focus on Black-owned businesses. And I'm always looking at, different businesses. And we've featured all kinds of different types on the show. But I thought this was interesting. I was on Instagram, and I was kind of like, yo, that's a business. It's called HBCU style of cheerleading. Stomp and Shake. It is spreading across the country thanks to the help of Ultimate Cheer and Dance Experience, LLC. They're the home of Cheer Fi. This global incorporated cheerleading organization connects college cheerleaders under one umbrella with different chapters. To tell us more about Cheer Fi, the Chief Marketing Officer, Nia Fripp. President and CEO is Wynette Stevens Fripp, and Chief Financial Officer, Imani Renee. They join us from Atlanta. All right, glad to have y'all here. So, all right, how does this thing get started?
Oh, wow. It just got started from a love of cheerleading, basically, and seeing that there was a void that focused on HBCU cheerleading, Stomp and Shake cheerleading, and within our community. And so we wanted to answer that call and created a company that goes around the country training cheerleaders in the Stomp and Shake style of cheerleading, which has been popular since the early 70s on campuses of historically Black colleges and universities, particularly in Virginia and North Carolina, with Virginia State University and Winston-Salem State University as well.
All right, so you named those two. So is that where all y'all went to school? Why y'all give it? How did they get the shout out?
Well, actually, yes, we all attended Winston-Salem State University, but Imani actually cheered at North Carolina A&T. Go Aggies. And as you know, all of them are, both of them are part of the CIAA, which is the Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association, which is the oldest Black basketball tournament in the country and only second to the NCAA tournament as far as attendance. Now it is in Baltimore, Maryland. It was in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so, yes, that's why, because it is the only Stomp and Shake cheerleading conference that focuses on this HBCU style of cheer.
All right, so did all three of y'all cheer?
Well, throughout our lives, yes. Yes.
All right, just checking. Just want to know, who was the cheer specialist here. And so now what's interesting in this here, you've got a lot of people who talk about cultural appropriation. So the groups that you teach, are they all Black or are there different groups?
So for the most part, we do work traditionally with African American women. There is a mix in of different cultures, and not even people that we've worked with personally, but just, exploring the World Wide Web. With everybody having access to everything now, there are definitely white schools doing it, Hispanic schools doing it. So it has definitely reached out across all cultures and demographics, for sure.
And we've also trained individuals who are of different races as well, especially when we were teaching recreational cheerleading down in Jacksonville, North Carolina. We had all races that participated. And of course, at HBCUs, there are other races that attend them, and they also are on the cheerleading squads as well. And they, even in high school, when you were doing Stomp and Shake cheerleading in high school, there were all races that were participating as well.
Yes, and social media has definitely been a big part of that, with helping, just bridge the gap and educating a lot more girls and seeing exactly what that is, especially, through TikTok and different things of, like that, with challenges and stuff like that. So it definitely has helped a lot of people understand exactly what it is and become more interested in it, as, the African-American wave does tend to do with the culture. So, it wasn't a surprise to see that more people are starting to do that of all different races and demographics.
So who's actually doing the teaching? One of you three?
We all teach.
All of us.
All right, so how do y'all deal with the rhythmically challenged?
Well, what we do is we actually get hands-on with them, and we allow them to feel our waist and what the movement should feel like.
Y'all can actually teach some folk to have rhythm?
Listen, we can help. We can help, but again, it's your practice. You gotta do some practicing at home yourself. It's just like if Steph is in the gym shooting, practicing his shot. You're saying you gotta do your own work as well, and you gotta really, really want it.
Now, some folk just born with no rhythm. All right, let's go to my panelists for questions. I guess I'll go to the Tuskegee graduate first, Randy.
Yes, that's appropriate, because that we are, our Tigerettes are amazing. And what I wanted to ask is, so is there a competition where now HBCUs are getting together and the cheer squads are actually competing against each other in style of performance?
If I'm not mistaken, I'm hoping that I heard you correctly. You were looking for a competition, and that was really one of the things that we wanted to have, was a national championship. But we thought that representation was important, and we wanted to have it televised, because you see that our counterparts on ESPN, and you may see an HBCU here or there, but it's important for all of us to be able to get together and showcase that talent for all of the youth that are in our community. And that's one of the wonderful things that we were able to do with our company. When we had a competition, it was on YouTube. We were the first ones to have Stomp and Shake cheerleading on YouTube back in 2008. And that really helped it take shape and blow up from there.
Fantastic.
All right, Mustafa?
Yeah, well, first let me give a shout out to Caitlin Canty, my goddaughter, who was a cheerleader at Hampton University. I'm curious about corporate sponsorship. Are you receiving much of that? And if so, what does growth look like for your entity?
Well, what we have done, we have participated in regards to marketing corporate sponsors at events like the Atlanta Football Classic, or we're looking to do some more of that within the CIAA or some of the other conferences. We've also been speaking with different brands that utilize cheerleading as a marketing piece because they have the most recognizable sport the entire year. And of course, cheerleaders are very marketable. So we have received some corporate sponsors. We are always open to even more because we have a wonderful marketing background in regards to being able to utilize them to help promote products.
Joe.
Wondering, what age are your clinic participants? What age can start? Talk a little bit, too, about your goals for growth. And I looked on your website and I saw that there are virtual clinics as well. So talk about it, too, in terms of, I'm thinking of access. You know, what if somebody's in, you know, some state that is not an HBCU state, even though most states are on some level, and they want to connect with this? How do they do it?
Right. So to answer the first question, yes, from all different ages, as long as you're willing to learn and come out and show us what you got and be coachable, we definitely love to teach us all different students. When it comes to the virtual camps, like you said, yes, everyone cannot travel. Everyone does not, you know, live in a state where HBCUs are prevalent and things of that nature. So having those virtual classes definitely is something that can include them so that they feel a part of it as well and are getting all of the knowledge and feel like that they're right there in person. We also do like to travel to different schools if, you know, that is able within our schedules. We love to go to different schools and meet them in person, but it's just very, very important with all of the different ages, you know, just to be there for the youth so that we're there in person, being an example for them to aspire to, being someone that they can actually see and learn from and get that one-on-one connection, because a lot of young girls, especially in the Black community, don't have that many outlets to be able to have and express, you know, their femininity within a sport, to show their personalities within a sport. So it's just very important for them to see that and for them to feel like they're a part of something that's positive with everything that goes on inside of, you know, our country and our world.
And I believe that we trained girls as young as 5 when we did with the recreation teams as well. Yes, and they were able to learn. They were very, very excited.
They loved it.
In regards to that. So, yeah.
Imani, how has the business grown? And what I mean by that is y'all started this what year?
Wow, so actually our mom started it, she founded it in 2005. So before Nia and I were even conscious or aware of what was going on. But I would say probably within the last 5 to 8 years, we really started to expand the business and grow it through social media. You know, social media is the name of the game in today's world. And we're able to reach so many people. We've been all over the country. So I would say that's when it really started to expand.
Nia, when y'all are working with people, what is it? Is it 1 day, 3 days, 5 days, a week? Do you have ongoing clients?
Yeah, so we do have ongoing clients. It does depend on what their availability is. We do have 1 day camps. We have up to 3 day camps, you know, just depending on their schedules and what they would like. But we do have girls that come back every single year that look forward to it and ask us every time, when are we coming back? You know, so it's just a very ongoing thing. And we just look forward to expanding more and just bridging out more throughout the country.
Well, that last question. So are you dealing with colleges, or are you dealing with colleges, high schools, junior high schools?
We deal with colleges, high schools, junior high schools, community colleges as well, because we also offer our Cheer Fi Club, which is for those who are not in college, and to connect them to HBCU style of cheerleading, stomp and shake style of cheerleading, but also to mentor them in regards to their mental health and their self-esteem and things of that nature. And we also offer, you know, the Cheer Fi organization for those who are in colleges and those who are alumni as well. So we're connected. We've got a network going here.
All right, then. All right. How can folks find you?
They can find us on our website at ucdecheerfi.com, and they can just hit us up. We're on Instagram. We are on Twitter as well. We're also on YouTube, and we would love to hear from you. We will travel to you, and we would definitely come and train you, and you can become a part of the Cheer Fi family.
All right, then. Well, look, we certainly appreciate it. Good luck. and keep helping those folks out who have challenges when it comes to rhythm.
Yes. Thank you so much for having us. We want to give scholarships to HBCU cheerleaders. That is our goal in our future plans. You all have a wonderful day.
All right. Thanks a bunch. Appreciate it. I'm going to close the show out with this here, y'all. Saw this video here, and y'all know some crazy people out here. So these Hispanic workers were out there just doing their job, and this white woman decided to show her ass. Watch this.
Because they're not documented. They 100% are. They 100% are. But it's not your information. Sure it is. I'm a citizen of the country. I mean, I'm a citizen. How is it not my business? They're not even working on your property. It doesn't matter. They're working in my neighborhood. They're working next to my property. I don't understand. They all have documentation and now you're demanding it? Yes. Are you demanding mine as well? Well, you obviously are not Hispanic. And why is that? Why are you not demanding my documentation? Are you that dense? Are you? Is this a racist thing? It's because they're Hispanic? Of course. Hispanics are the only undocumented here. Mexicans and South Americans, yes. And we're facing a huge crisis in this country. Do I need to get police involved here? Sure. So that you'll let these guys alone? I'm not bothering them. You are harassing them, and you're actually on this person's property as well. No, I'm not. Okay. I'm going to have these guys keep working. Well, okay, and I'm going to call the police. Okay, I will as well. Thank you. Thank you for letting us know, but I'm going to have these guys keep working. We're contracted by them. They're actually getting ready to come out and let you know the same exact things. So I'm going to have them keep on rocking and rolling. You keep rocking and rolling. Okay, awesome. Keep it up. Thank you. Awesome. Great.
How arrogant and racist can you be to roll up on some folk who ain't even doing work for you and demand to see their papers? This literally, Joe, is what we saw during racist apartheid when black people had to carry a passbook with their papers. And anybody white could just accost them and demand to see their papers.
And hey, this is where we're going. It was not only the fact that she did it, but the thought that she could. No ramifications. And just as honest as pie. Are you doing this because they're Hispanic? Yes, absolutely. They're the only people that are here legally. Mexicans and South Americans, that's it. That's all there is. That's the only problem. Not on her property, doesn't have anything to do with her at all, but she needs to see their papers. But this is entitlement. This is where we're going. And if we're not aware of it, it's going to sink down on us, out of nowhere. And then everybody's going to wonder why we're dealing with what we're dealing with. It's because they feel like they can.
These racists, Randy, are emboldened. And they absolutely believe, and you say, yeah, you damn right, I can just walk up on you and demand to see papers.
This is their country, and anybody else has to prove their rights to be there. This is how they feel. I mean, her attitude was obvious. She didn't try to hide it. She believes that this country is hers and that anybody else is hyphenated. And she has the absolute right to walk up and ask you to prove why you're there. And this happens every day, thousands of times a day. Everybody has a story. And that's how the term Karen came up. And what is always so interesting to me, though, is how safe she feels. Also, when he said, I'll call the police, because she knows that the police is typically going to work on her behalf and take her side. There's no fear. Whereas when you tell Black people, I'm going to call the police, we react very differently because we understand that it usually does not go in our favor, regardless of how right that we are. I congratulate the boss who definitely tried to protect his employees. That made me proud. I like to see allyship in action. I wish she'd even done more, but it was better than I would see sometimes. But she's disgusting, but she's also typical.
And what we're seeing, Mustafa, Republicans are passing bills that will allow law enforcement to do the same thing, or just these lone wolves out there. I mean, we are going to see more of this in this country. Bank on it.
It's about power and privilege. I mean, Joe touched on some of that. And we've got these, you know, the question becomes, where do people get this from? Well, some of it is just embedded into them. Maybe it's in their DNA, but it's definitely in the history of how their power can play out. But now we've got, you know, these various lawmakers who continue to introduce these pieces of legislation where folks can just pull people over, they can stop them and say, show me your papers. But if you understand the history behind those types of actions, as you mentioned, it's not only South Africa, the Nazis did it to Jewish folks, and part of the Black codes. You can go through the history of this country and a number of other countries where people have utilized these types of things to oppress folks and to also put people in their place. Last point I'll make is that she really doesn't understand immigration in this country, because if she looked at the northern border as well as the southern border, you'd find that there are people coming from Europe illegally. There are people coming from other countries illegally. So we need to make sure that, one, we understand the fullness of what's happening, and then two, making sure that we have a fair and just immigration policy so no one has to worry about the fear of someone like this or others trying to get over on them.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. So for folks out there, understand this is the nonsense you see happening every single day. All right, Mustafa, Randy, Joe, I certainly appreciate y'all joining us on today's show. Thank you so very much. Folks, don't forget, support us in what we do. We're out here doing the good fight, bringing you attention to stories like this, letting y'all know Project Between 25, what's going on. Because trust me, you're not having the level of in-depth conversation that we have on this show that you ain't seeing this on MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, and the rest of these folks. And so that's why this show matters. Your support is critical. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Also, be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available bookstores nationwide. Shout out to the folks who have given during this show on Cash App: Robert Blackwell, Tommy Williams. We also have Victor Williams, Marion Blackman, Sharon Chambers, Kalisa Vanderhall, Brenda Hollis, Tracy White. Let's see, Monet, Mary Bisley, also Patricia, Derek, Ruby Hodge, Michelle Embry, Kimberly, Veronica Carter, LaWanda Allen, Ted, Jerome Sungari, Roche Ivy, Francis Luckett, Evangeline Morris, Brown Electric, Pamela Brogdon, Bradrick Bennett, Linda Williams Wooten, VG Flint, and then let's see here. I got some people have also given via PayPal. Give me a second. I'm going to pull this up. Jeffrey Upperman, we certainly appreciate your support of the show as well. And I think I have one more. Give me a second. Let me find it. Scrolling down here. Will Bradley, I certainly appreciate it as well. So, folks, thank you so very much. I'll see y'all tomorrow right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Holla! Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?